Hello everyone and welcome to the Bonus Points podcast. I'm Joe Garrett, as always been joined by Ollie Guy.
Oi oi. Oh no! I didn't it slipped out. That's my normal response.
Oi oi won't die.
It won't die.
It started because you just did say it a few times, right?
Yeah. It's my default response when someone says, hello Ollie.
Just in the street, you can't help it.
I can't control it.
It's like an automatic response. Anyway, hello everyone, welcome to the podcast. If you are new here, it's a podcast where we discuss a new game every 2 weeks. When I say new game, it's normally an old game, but a new game to us, usually. And then we rank it on an overall leaderboard, which is getting longer and longer every month. And today, we're going to be discussing Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance.
Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. A made-up word, may I add, Revengeance. Shall I read out this Wikipedia article?
Yep.
Or the beginning of, anyway. So, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is a 2013 action-adventure game developed by Platinum Games and published by Konami. It was released for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360 in February 2013 and on PC in 2014. It is a spin-off of the Metal Gear series set 4 years after the events of Metal Gear Solid 4. It features returning Metal Gear character Raiden as he confronts a private military company that intends to destabilize powerful nations for profit. The gameplay focuses on fighting enemies using sword and other weapons to perform combos and counterattacks. Through the use of Blade Mode, Raiden can dismember enemies in slow motion and steal health items with their bodies. The series' usual stealth elements are also optional, serving as a means to avoid combat. So there we go.
And so you played this, did you play it when it was released?
I played it, and may I add, I finished it when it came out.
And so, did you? Is that because you didn't finish it this time?
No, I got up to the end, and I got up to the final phase of the final boss, and I did it last night, and I was struggling, and I got up this morning, I did it about 4 times, I couldn't do it, and I was like, do you know what? I know how it ends. Then I watched the last cutscene on YouTube. I've got nothing to prove. I finished it before, so yeah, I downed my tools.
We appreciate your honesty. That's what we appreciate. And then I didn't play it back in the day, so this was my kind of first time playing it at all. So this was my fresh noob experience of playing through it. But I was able to get over that finish line and complete the over hour-long boss fight that the
yes,
game
it is long, isn't it?
with. It's like, it feels like, oh, you didn't like do the boss. It's like, well, if you did like most of it, that's still like it's basically like several bosses in a row almost. But we are getting about as far ahead of ourselves as we could. So, seeing as this is kind of more your area of expertise, do you want to kind of just sort of set up sort of mostly gameplay wise, like what is this game?
I will set it up, but I actually don't think it is my area of expertise at all. I really don't.
Okay.
No. Because like, I don't play. Like, I've never really enjoyed a Platinum game, and I don't really play these kind of action games. Whereas you kind of do. So I think it might actually be more your area of expertise than mine. Because of like Platinum Games, who developed it, they're a bit like From Software. Like, if you like one Platinum game, you're probably gonna like all of them. Whereas like, I like Metal Gear Rising, but I've never really been able to get on with any of their other games. So I'm like,
have you never done Bayonetta?
No, I don't like our accent.
I'm curious. I'm curious now if I've ever played a Platinum game.
Well, I can throw you some big famous ones at you. Wonderful 101 was them.
Nope.
Astral Chain.
Not played that. I have seen one. I'm looking up a list. There is one
Vanquish?
that I've played.
Is it Vanquish?
Yeah, Vanquish is the one that doesn't require much hitting. It's shooting. I guess that's the one I've played.
I just feel like I can never quite get the hang of their games, and like I always feel like I'm missing something or like not getting it because it never works the way I think. Anyway, I will say, so this game, just to set it up, third-person action game. It's Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, any of those sorts of games. You've ever seen them, you know exactly what this is like. But the main focus on this, which is a pretty cool feature it has called Blade Mode, where you can like accurately use your sword and be like, this is the motion your sword is going to take on this enemy or object or whatever it is, and it will slice that thing in half, which is like, the technology is still pretty impressive now, even after 11 years. I've never seen it replicated. And then by basically cutting things up, you can cut doors in half to get through them. You can cut enemies in half to like pull their fuel out of them and boost your health. And then, yeah, the game is you run from A to B, cutting enemies in half, and then you fight bosses. All the while, Raiden is talking to his like cohorts about like how he doesn't want to be a soldier for them, but he wants to be a soldier for himself. And if you played Metal Gear, you kind of get the idea. You get the idea.
But it's so obviously it had a little bit of an interesting development. So my first exposure to this game was like the early demos that were released from Konami before Platinum were involved, where it seemed like they were making a slightly more traditional Metal Gear game in terms of it seemed to be mostly more stealth focused, but they were really focusing on that slicing tech they had. I remember there's a bit where like they were slicing pillars to make a building drop, and then melons is the famous thing, slicing melons and kind of not slicing through the table and breaking it apart. Like I remember seeing that demo, and it was probably right in the middle of my peak enjoyment of Metal Gear in general. And I remember getting really excited about that. And then when this game kind of came out and I kind of saw what it was, and you know, it's not normally the type of game I tend to play. I ended up just never getting around to getting it. But I think I probably would back in the day. I obviously just never ran across it secondhand somewhere, which is normally what would decide for what I ended up playing. Is if I happened to see it pre-owned for like less than a tenner, I'm sure I would have got it, but that obviously never happened.
Yeah, when it was initially announced, it was called Metal Gear Solid Rising. And then the little thing that's normally tactical espionage action was lightning bolt action. And I actually watched that trailer you're talking about 20 minutes ago. It's still on YouTube. Yeah, it's IGN.
Is it still really impressive? I remember it.
Yeah, and also it looks a lot better than this game does. Like, as in, look, graphically, like they went more for like a MGS4 kind of like realistic look as well, like really color graded and like it looks cool. They does that bit where he runs under the arches and cuts them all down. He cuts a car in half, and then when he hits the car, the windows shatter rather than just kind of slicing the glass. I don't think it could have run on Xbox 360, to be honest with you. So I can see why they might have changed it. But yeah, it was way darker.
I did run into a room which was like quite a hidden room, and it just had a bunch of melons like placed in almost like a perfect grid. I don't know if that was like an Easter egg. And so I spent ages cutting them up, and that was like my first time, because obviously in the game normally when you're fighting soldiers, you're using that kind of blade mode as a mechanic, but that was kind of one of the few times where I was like, I'm just going to play with this mechanic for a while, and I was like, okay, slice it in half, get it smaller. Then I was like, a little tiny slice. I was like, can I slice that? I was like, I could, and I was like, break it apart like the smallest bits of melon, and I couldn't, like, I never ran into like a limit. It never started like fading away the older pieces or stopping working. Like there will be a limit, like obviously, but like it's not really anything that anyone would ever run into in a normal playthrough. It's still, as you say, really impressive technologically wise.
Yeah, the in the main game, when you are killing enemies and you're cutting them up, they tend to like just explode like something off The Simpsons. Just like they're fine, and they go like, and they just disappear, which completely works. I hadn't thought about it until you just said about the watermelons. That's probably why they do that. So there's not like, you know, bits of enemy everywhere. And then eventually you unlock an ability to use that blade mode without slowing down time. So then you can do multiple things at once, like cut loads of different enemies at once. And it's good. It's a very, very impressive thing. And I don't have any memory of ever seeing it anywhere else.
And it's not just a case of like, oh, slice to do damage. There's a lot of times where you have to be like really precise, like to do the thing where you kind of sounds really gross, but take their like spine out, like their mech spine, and you just have like that square you got to aim. A lot of some of the boss fights will have a thing where they're throwing something towards you and you have to like perfectly line it up. I always really enjoy those moments where they're using it where it's not just you spinning the analog stick and going like slice, 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 slice. Like it actually makes you have to like have thought in terms of how you're slicing. Or even some ones where it's like, oh, one of their limbs, they kind of go blue, and you're like, oh, that means I can just cut it off. And so when slicing, you want to make sure you like cut that limb off, and then like sometimes it's quite gruesome where you can cut like all 4 limbs off, and they're just still alive on the floor, like trying to headbutt you. It's a bit like Monty Python, like the Black Knight, like still like don't run away, you coward! Like, but it really changes if you slice off the arm of an enemy that was holding a sword. Like they just don't have that attack anymore. So there is strategy and normal gameplay with it.
Yeah, and there's that part where you got to cut the guy's hand off to scan the gate. And if you don't cut his hand off, they're just like, whoa, you killed them all? Guess you should just cut your way in. And then you just cut through the gate anyway. because that's what I didn't realize it wasn't going to be endlessly respawning, so I was just like killing them all, and then they ran out. There was no one to kill. But yeah, this isn't really. Obviously, it's a Metal Gear game, but it's not similar to any of the other ones by any means. Even other Metal Gear Solid spin-offs, like Metal Gear Acid, is closer to the original formula than this is. I mean, apart from the fact that there's a box that you can sit in, and it has the alert sound, I feel like we're 100 miles away from Metal Gear Solid at this point.
Yeah, I think obviously it has the sound effects, which are so distinctive. Yeah. And I think I was surprised. Obviously, chronologically, it's very close to Metal Gear Solid 4, but it was kind of almost nostalgic to me, who hasn't played Metal Gear Solid 4 since I played it originally on PS3. Like, it has a lot of Metal Gear Solid 4 enemies and specific sound effects. Mm-hmm. And so for me, like, it felt a lot closer to Metal Gear Solid 4, which obviously makes sense because it's, in terms of when it was released, it was the closest one to when it was released. And it did kind of make me think like, oh, do I want to play Metal Gear Solid 4 again? It kind of started reminding me of some of those, like, the cooler moments and some of the cool enemy design and just the audio, like the sound of like a lot of the robots in Metal Gear Solid 4. It kind of reminded me of those. But yeah, gameplay wise, like, you can see the kind of shadow of the game it was going to be, because there is stealth in it, as you kind of mentioned in that Wikipedia article. Like, you normally don't have to do stealth and you can kind of just start fighting if you want, but they seem to like quite heavily encourage it. And as you say, they give you the box to hide in, and like when you stop doing stealth, like if you get spotted over the radio, they're almost sort of like, oh well, I guess you're gonna have to just start attacking them now then. But like the stealth, it doesn't give you any interesting tools. You can't like creep or like go along the edge of a wall or anything. You're kind of just sort of walking around normally, and then if you go behind an enemy, you can press a button to do granted, very nice animation to take them out, but it's just like a little cutscene plays, and that's really all there is to it in terms of stealth.
There's also a forced stealth section, where you like something happens to Raiden where he's like emotionally unavailable or something.
Oh, I forgot about that.
You have to walk, but like I just walked by them, like no attempt of hiding whatsoever, and they seemed to not notice that I was there. So
yeah, if you just go around the right-hand side, they just kind of ignore you.
Yeah, and then there's there is the like, you can kill them from above if you like jump down. But I feel like, you know, you get the best scores by doing the Zandatsu thing, which is like pulling their fuel out. And you can't do that if you do a stealth kill. So it's almost worth it. If you're going for trying to earn money, it's like worth it to get into these huge fights, which I guess makes sense. You know, they're flirting with the idea of stealth, but they're not really giving it to you. They even have the like Soliton radar from Metal Gear, and they mention it. They're like, oh, you got Soliton radar. There's no vision cones on it. Your best bet is to use the like detective vision, where you can like just see enemies through walls and then, you know, when to run around behind them. They did bring over the metal barrel from MGS4 though, which I did like. But that's very much I recognise that thing, you know, and that's kind of the value of it.
Yeah.
But I did roll in it long enough to make Raiden sick, which was quite fun. So
I never actually used the barrel. Maybe I should.
You can roll a log and knock people over.
Oh, I assumed you'd just be like, you know, in Toy Story 2 when they're in the cone. I assumed you'd just be.
Oh, it does that too. Yeah, just your legs poking out the bottom. Yeah, it's good.
Okay. And it also the other thing that's kind of the other part that's closer to Metal Gear Solid is you do get equipment as well. You get like different types of grenades and like rocket launchers and things. But I don't know about you, they're always just a bit of a chore to use. Like, to switch to them, you just have to stop moving and use like the D-pad to go through. And then like to throw a grenade or do a rocket, you just have to stand so still. Yeah. And like so many times I'd bring it up and the enemy's like behind me and I'm like slowly turning around to try and get to them, and then I just get hit. Like I found them really probably not that effective, but also even if they were effective, it's so unfun to use compared to like fighting. I feel like they were added when this game was going to be a different type of game, and they were like, well, we've done the work, we'll leave it in. Like, that's really what it feels like.
Yeah, that kind of like playfulness of Metal Gear Solid of like, oh, you have 100 tools at your disposal and you can mess around with them. Like, that's not in this game at all. And that's fine because this is going for something completely different. But that was the biggest difference I noticed between this and Metal Gear Solid, is like, there is no like, what if I just like put this box over here with like something on it that will distract them, then like a magazine, and then a claymore mine, then I'll just go and watch what happens. It's like nothing like that at all. It's like you're sprinting in, all guns blazing, or sword swinging, I guess, every time. That's like the best option every time. There's no other option. And I also found with a lot of the side, you like earn side weapons like other swords and stuff. So I found the one that basically is all these arms holding, it's like a pole. And because it attacks such a huge range, that was kind of like the best one. I didn't bother really using any other ones. I tested them, but ended up just dropping them after a couple of swings, to be honest. Especially like the heavy ones, because you need that speed, right?
Yeah, I ended up sticking just with the normal weapon because the thing is there's a lot of like combos where it's like press, for me on the Steam Deck, like X, Y, Y, X and stuff. And I didn't want to lose all of that where it's just, oh no, now it's just X for my katana and then like a different kind of move set for like the sub weapon. So I just stuck with the main one, and then the points that I would have spent upgrading, like buying new things, I just upgraded all of my health and stuff and bought moves. Okay. There's like the system where a lot of, I mean, it makes sense for this kind of game where you have, a lot of moves to begin with, but then you keep buying more. And I really like that system because it means that you're not overwhelmed with a completely huge list of moves. It's a long list, but it's not, really long. And it means that like when you do buy a new move, you're probably going to look at it and see how to do it, and it will kind of force you to like try it out. It's like, well, I've spent money on it, might as well use it. So apart from the dodge having to be a bought thing, that's the only thing that should have been there out the gate, considering how useful it is.
Yeah, all those Platinum games are like that. The dodge is always something you have to buy, and it's really annoying. It's like all their games, they follow a really similar structure. It's always the same mission-based structure where it's like you get ranked from A to, C to S. And there's always like a mission at the beginning that you have to lose, and then you have to buy the dodge, and it's like, I always feel like with their games, I feel like I've never really mastered it. Like this game, obviously, last boss omitted from this, but I didn't find it very difficult. But I still didn't really feel like I had the hang of it. Do you know what I mean? Like I was just like mashing the buttons, and like it was working. I was getting like S ranks, but I never really got the hang of it at all.
Yeah, there was a few moves that I got to a point where like I'd almost accidentally done them enough, like hitting them in the air, or like the rapid kind of Chun-Li kick move. Like I ended up like learning how to do that a few times. But yeah, I mean, I always, with those like long like move lists, I always feel just a bit disconnected from what the player's doing to what I'm pressing. If it feels like I'm just inputting a command and then they're going to do it. I often feel that on like fighting games as well. Like I think some more than others, like where it's like, oh, I'm inputting these, like this combo is X, Y, B, and then like hold B, and then I just feel like, oh, I'm just memorizing commands rather than feeling like I'm controlling the character. Whereas, I prefer games where it's like, no, like this button is this move, this button is that move. But it would make sense how you would combine them, and then there might be variations like, oh, if you're sprinting or jumping, it does something different. Like then I always feel a little bit more in control. But I think the good thing with this game is like everything's good. Like all of the any kind of button mashing you do will like probably be pretty effective, not as effective as it could have been, but also just look amazing. Like you could hand this to someone and just be like, just press all the buttons, and it's like you would look really cool just because of how stylish this game is and how kind of impressive it makes Raiden look all the time.
Yeah, that's I think where all of the focus has gone. It's like making these huge moments with Raiden. Like he's absolute force to be reckoned with. Like he can pick up robots that are, I don't know, 1,000 times his size probably. He can sprint. I mean, I think you sprint up and down skyscrapers probably 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, which drove me crazy because you spend ages trying to find the lift to go up on the outside, and like you're trying to like go through this building, and then you get forced outside. He just runs up the outside. It's like if you had that ace in your back pocket, why don't you do that all the time? Like,
yeah, and it's got the in-game the ninja run technique where you just hold the R trigger, and anything in your way you will kind of skip over. And I feel like it works well enough. Like it looks pretty impressive. Every so often you'll do like a weird, like really high jump to get over something really low. But apart from that, like it works so that when you're targeting an enemy, like say a huge robot, if you're holding down Ninja Run, if there's anything in the way that you're trying to strafe around, he will just flip over it. That's kind of where it was the most useful. And I thought it was actually pretty clever that they added that.
It's kind of like I don't know if it's still what they're like, but at least early Assassin's Creed games, I think it was still on those you would hold right trigger and not as jumping over cars and stuff. So probably not cars, but car size thing. But like,
Carts.
say if there was like things you got to step over quickly, you would just hold right trigger and he would just keep going. So it's like, hey, this is not the priority right now. Like, yeah, sometimes that looked a little bit funky. There'd be cool moments where you'd be doing that to like run up like someone shooting missiles at you and you're like running up the missiles or like running up the rubble of a building. I guess we should talk about it's mostly in the cutscenes, but in a lot of them are interactive cutscenes. It's just how much of just a crazy spectacle, like everything is like turned to 10.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. This is like, if you were like 14 when this came out, you'd lose your mind. Like, Raiden is like, he's a cool design and he's not a cool character. He's a cool design and he does like, he can hold his sword in, like anything you can imagine he can do. Like, he can hold his sword in his foot and use his sword like that if he wants. He can like grab a robot, spin it around above his head, throw it. He can pull a bit of a robot and use it as a giant sword. He like drives a car, smashes the car to pieces, flips out of like, and he's fine. And it's like, this guy is just like completely indestructible. He's got a bit of a weird thing where he puts on like a Batman voice, which like lost me every time he did it. But in terms of the action, this is up there. I think it's helped by the fact that all of the levels are quite barren. So it's like that you're basically just in giant squares over and over again. There's not really much else going on, which kind of helps for him being able to do anything and it never really slowing down or chugging. But yeah, I mean, this is like, I wouldn't say it was good as Titanfall 2, like in terms of like action going, but I'd say it's up there. Like it's pretty non-stop, right?
Just to go back to the voice.
Yeah.
We're on. So that voice, is that like in, because I had a note here about like his voice seemed to change in every cutscene. And there were times, because obviously I know this is kind of Metal Gear Solid 4 Raiden and even beyond that where he kind of turned cool. But like I had to check if it was the same voice actor from the early games. But there's like certain just lines where like it will be like you'll hear a voice and I'm like, who's that? And it'll cut and it'll be Raiden speaking. I was like, oh, why does he sound like that now? And then sometimes, as you say, it almost sounds like he's doing an impression of like David Hayter's Snake sometimes, but like an impression like we would do of it. Like someone who doesn't have that natural gruffness, but is like someone pretending to. Like it was really weird.
It's like when he's talking to his little mates at home, mostly he's talking in his normal voice. And then anytime he's talking to anyone else, he's like putting on a voice like this. And it's like, it just sounds ridiculous. And like, Raiden's pretty lame. Like, he's a pretty lame dude, isn't he? Like, the thing about him is that he's like this crazy design of this like cybernetic ninja, but they make him do things like drive a car. And like, he just looks mad. Like, he doesn't look like, or like walking in civilian areas. And it's like, I don't know. And I think the fact that he takes himself so seriously makes him a bit hard to like love. Because he's just, I mean, he chops people in half. And he's like, through the whole game, he's got this like back and forth with like, do I want to chop people in half or do I want to not? But the answer's always chop in half. So it's a bit like, doesn't really go anywhere. Do you know what I mean?
You've got one thing. If you lose that, what even are you? That him driving, like that stood out to me because it was super weird just seeing, I was like, why does this look so weird? Him like driving on like the freeway. And I was like, oh yeah, because you just never see anything like that in Metal Gear. It's always in these crazy like locations or like some military base somewhere or some tanker or something. It was just super weird just seeing like, oh no, they're just on the street. like in an office building. Like you never really see anything quite like that in Metal Gear. And it kind of was the first time I was like, oh yeah, Metal Gear is set in like near future, like Earth.
Yeah, they always you never see them doing anything civilian, do you, in Metal Gear? They're always like hanging out on a military base. That's it. Or like in the technological area that's, impossible space. Like it's never riding a motorbike or like I swear in one scene he's like getting out of a cab or something and two civilians see him and they're like, what is that? And what
is that?
Let me turn that off.
Just for audio
That was
listeners,
crazy.
like loads of balloons just flew over on Ollie's screen.
I don't know how to turn that off, so we're just going to have to deal with it. But yeah, anyway, these civilians are just like...
Is that when he's like got like the sombrero on and he like goes
Yeah, but
down
he only
into
has
the
it on for like
sewers?
2 minutes because he gets out of the cab, and then when he gets into the manhole, he takes it off. So it's like, what are you doing?
I think they were like, do you know what would be a really funny scene? Like, I think that's what they were they were thinking of.
I feel like they do that quite a few times where they're like, what would be funny? But it never really lands, I think, the way that they expect it to.
There's
It
like
just
a
comes
bit
across
where-
as a bit off-putting and like bizarre.
With like the wolf, he's got like his like robot dog and he wants it to like do paw and like because someone else does, and they have a few attempts for like straight humor that as you say never really land, but even if they did land, they would feel so out of place compared to the rest of it.
I would consider the main series, Metal Gear Solid, to be funny, but it's more like funny because of what you're doing, like in your gameplay. You know, you're like making these crazy things or like using weapons in unexpected ways, like, and they can have funny results. Whereas this doesn't. In the gameplay, there's nothing like that. It's just like, you know.
Yeah, and I think they know. I think that's like intention. Like I think the mechanics are designed to be funny in those games, and people slipping over things, and like I I don't think it's like people can take their sandbox and make funny things out of it. And I guess like the some of the cutscenes are so over the top. It's not like everything is so serious here, but it's sort of. It's more the humor is the absurdity of it rather than like a punchline, and I think those are the jokes that stand out.
Yeah, it's like that weird thing, isn't it, where like there was like a Batman series called The Brave and the Bold, and like it's really funny, but Batman is like really serious the whole time, but everyone around him is funny.
Yeah.
Whereas like in this, they're kind of all serious all the time, and none of them are ever like. You got your guys. You got your guys back at home who are like sometimes they're cracking jokes, but Raiden's never like. Ha, ha, ha. He's always just like, shut up. Like, he's so serious.
And there's a lot of people like that call you, and I never really knew who any of them were or what. I mean, like I'm sure it's in the game, and I'm sure if I was really focused on taking notes, I could keep track. But maybe this is just me not absorbing it properly, but I never really fully knew who Raiden worked for and what was that group and what was everyone's role in it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the brain storyline is fine. It's you understand it. So there's a story where basically there's this company that are kidnapping children, they're taking out their brains, they're teaching their brains to be really good soldiers, and then they're putting those brains inside robots. And Raiden's like, that is wrong. I want to stop that. Fair enough. And then there's all this other stuff around it that's like, I had no idea what was going on. So like, obviously I watched the final cutscene on YouTube, and I was like what's happening? Like who are all these like different militias? And like, I found it actually harder to follow than a Metal Gear story, like a Metal Gear Solid story. Like it was that random and complicated. I don't know why. I don't know why it was that complicated, to be honest.
It felt like playing the sequel to a game that I haven't played the first one off. Like it felt like you're kind of dropped right in the middle of all that. I mean, at the beginning, I got it, and like they were there basically kind of keeping the peace, and the big story, another parallel with Metal Gear Solid 4. In Metal Gear Solid 4, the idea is that the world's essentially in constant combat, and that's sort of what drives the economy of the world. Yeah. And it seems like that has essentially ended, and people want to restart that. And it seems like Raiden's little group of companions are kind of one of the private, I guess not private militaries. I guess like Raiden himself is just a private military just by himself. He's just like keeping the peace and essentially being like almost like a bodyguard to like the president.
Yeah, I think he's meant to be like a Western cowboy character that's like, traveling and I'm now part of this thing, and then at the end I will make my own way elsewhere. We were talking about the story of the game. I don't know. Talking about it feels like we're doing it a bit of a disservice, but also Metal Gear is usually so based around the story, and I feel like actually the story of this game is a big detriment. Not just because it's a bit silly and hard to follow, but also because the cutscenes they feel very long. I don't know if they actually are, but they feel like you could be watching a cutscene for like 15 minutes. And then when you go into the game, Raiden's got his finger in his ear and he's chatting to someone for a further 5 minutes.
That's very much of the era, the slow walking with your finger in your ear. It's like, even just make a long corridor so I can at least run at full speed down it while you talk, even if it ends up being the same amount of time.
Because, you said that your game time was like 4 hours, 20 minutes or 25 minutes, right?
Yeah, something like that. I think I took a picture of it, actually. But yeah, I think it was like, just under 5 hours.
The recorded footage is like 8 hours. So it's like quite a big... I don't think it counts cutscenes. So there can't be 3 hours of cutscenes. Maybe there is.
Yeah, I had 4 hours, 25 minutes was my playtime. So I'm assuming that maybe that's not including cutscenes then, maybe.
Maybe not restarts. Did you die very much?
Let me see if it says on that. Sorry, I took the picture, so it keeps trying to like do it upside down. Obviously, took it upside down. I had 81 alerts. I don't know if it says how many times you've died. No, it doesn't say how many times you died, which is annoying. But I killed 416 enemies.
Wow.
I wasn't. Sorry.
It doesn't track how many health kits you used either. You know, these nano-paced repairs. So I was always thinking that like you get... Because after every fight you get like a ranking. I always thought it would penalise you for using those nano kits, but...
Yeah, that's why I was surprised that you didn't finish the final boss, because I found the beginning of the boss quite difficult because I didn't have any healing going into it, so I had to do it all with just the health I had. But then, like, when you get later into the fight, they just give you loads of those healing things, which you can use instantly and, like, completely refill your health. And they kind of throw them at you. So I always basically ended up maxing out on those. And so it kind of got easier towards the end.
I definitely didn't have any, and I was not given any either.
Oh, really? They dropped loads during the fight?
In the last section... Where did you get them in the final section, then?
Well, maybe I got them at the end of like the robot section and then just had them all or something. But I remember ending like I ended with having loads of them. But going into that fight, I had none.
Yeah. I had none the whole way through. But what I realised though is there's a bit the last boss he like throws buildings at you, and you cut them. And then when I watched on YouTube someone else doing it, I realised you could move the camera while in blade mode, which I didn't know. So because blade mode's the right stick, isn't it? Which is normally the camera stick. So I was like pulling up to slice, and I'd be like below all the targets. I think that might be when you get the health as well after. Yeah, so I was just like, do you know what? I've done it before. I don't care. Like, I don't need to do it again. I don't need to suffer through this anymore. So yeah, I got my sword there. But yeah, I think the pacing. I can imagine a lot of people will comment on this and being like, "Oh yeah, if you play through it again on a harder difficulty and you skip the cutscenes, that's like the way you're meant to do it." And I kind of got that impression, but
yeah, because outside of the cutscenes and the slow walking, listening to someone in your ear, like even doing the finger in the ear, it's like, well, you weren't doing that earlier. Like aside from that, like it moves at like a very rapid pace. Apart from that one very brief forced stealth section. Yeah. Like it's really, it doesn't really gate your progress. I mean, like I guess it does literally in terms of it does what most of these games do is it locks you in a combat arena with kind of just a not invisible wall because you can see it, but basically an invisible wall. But like, you know, the speed that you kill the enemies is the speed that you can carry on, and then you just sprint to like the next combat arena and you can kind of keep going again and again like that.
Yeah, I did actually quite like the way they justified locking you off, where they were like, oh yeah, if we keep you in this one area, we can be sure there won't be any collateral attacks. So like no one else will come in. And I was like, do you know what? Actually, that kind of makes sense. Like you would want him to stay in one place so that when everything's been dealt with, you can move on. Because normally
are you locked in with them or are they locked in with you? That's the
question. Also, the villain monologuing, and they all had like, all the villains were kind of doing a very Metal Gear Solid thing of like, I'm fighting for my nation or I'm not fighting for my nation. Never really landed, and I started to worry that maybe in Metal Gear Solid it was also never good. And that's why I didn't know if it was like this is a bad version of it or if it was just never good and I was young.
It's a lot of like, I'm going to beat you up, but first, here's like my philosophy on like
Yeah.
religion and war and politics. It's just, and I always do wonder when games get like that, like how much is from just the writers of the game like having their ideas and this is their outlet to share them. Obviously like they're writing for the villain here, so I'm not saying that like they believe everything that they're writing, but like the ideas are coming from somewhere, or I guess maybe it's like parodying people. I mean, for me it was super strange because so the final boss, who is like a US senator called Stephen Armstrong, which is I maybe I missed something. I didn't really know anything about him until that fight, and I was like, oh, he
just pops up at the end, and they kind of mention him in passing, where they're like, "Oh, do you work for Armstrong?" And he's like, "I'll never say, I'll never tell," and like,
yeah.
Okay.
But until you've seen like a face and a character, it's hard to keep track. So I was like, okay, I guess this guy's the final boss. Like, not really seen him up until now. But I played this the day that Trump got elected in 2024. Mm-hmm. And that was a bizarre thing because I was in the office, like Trump being elected, kind of. I'm sure the same was for you. Like, kind of dominated a lot of the conversations of that day, and obviously just going through the whole kind of election cycle and seeing clips of I can't believe what Trump said at this rally in Nevada or whatever it is, and then suddenly seeing this final boss, which is this senator kind of spewing their philosophy and. Like, how much of it would just seem like, oh my God, this is like some of this stuff I've just been like hearing for the past few months, and obviously it is taken to like even more of an extreme than Trump, but like he literally like says that he's going to make America great again. Like,
I know.
Like before Trump ever said that, he's not parodying Trump. Like it's just Trump is like the real world version existed after the parody. Like it's crazy, and like so many of like the philosophies kind of just line up to like stuff that I've heard Trump say. And it was so surreal that lined up that like I was playing on this day. Like I was probably the only person who did that boss fight on that day and had such a unique experience and perspective where like there's no way they could have envisioned someone like Trump actually becoming president when they made this game. Like, surely
I know.
But then the fact that did line up and then I experienced it on that same day, it was really felt like weird.
Yeah, I've also been looking forward to telling you this amazing fact. The Make America Great Again line. Do you know the person that wrote that line was on this podcast?
Oh, is that? It's got to be Eric Sturpey, right?
No, it's Mark from Enhance.
Oh, really?
The Make America Great Again. Yeah, he was the localizer, and he wrote that line. And whenever he's on another podcast, they always bring it up. Like, and he's like, I don't remember. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, that's actually a good thing to point out. Is it does try and follow along in a way real life politics, like Metal Gear often does, but never in a way that I felt was like it was trying to be edgy. There's a couple of references in it to 9/11, but they're not like, oh yeah, this will be worse than 9/11. And like winking at the camera, it's like it's all played straight, which I actually thought
it's the villain saying it, and they're saying it's going to be like as good as 9/11. Basically,
yeah, that's it.
Business will pick up again, just like it did after 9/11, because they want, they all want war to be happening because they make money from it. So they're basically trying to kill the president, right? But frame Pakistan. Was that my understanding? And then that would start a war.
Yeah, I think they were trying to get him killed in a base on Pakistan, but what actually happened was the big fight that Raiden had there. They made it as a terrorist attack, and like made out that I don't really know what happened at the end.
Yeah, but then like some people did die, and they tried to frame it, but then it ended up like the US and Pakistan became friends because of it. Yeah, an alliance. Like that was another thing where like I understood that bit of the story when it happened, but I was like, well, where did this come from? Like I missed.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm reading like the synopsis or like the final chapter of loads of stories, and I was like, wait, where was all the setup and like setting up these characters and people's motivations?
I can't believe we talked about the story for so long. Like,
I can't believe we spoke about it for so long and haven't spoke about George yet.
Oh, the little Guyana boy? Is that where he's from? The little Your little mate that you've...
Yeah,
he's got a
I'm
question-
not... I've got up here a thing of Revengeance characters. Let me click on him and see.
His name's definitely... Yeah,
Guyanese boy.
Yeah. He... Look, I don't know anything about what he's meant to sound like, but he had a very distracting way of speaking and accent that was... I think it was more strange the fact that it was coming out of a child than it was.
And they sounded so old as well.
Yeah,
like it sounded
yeah.
like this boy, like he looks like, for those on the video podcast, you should be seeing footage now. Like he looks like 8, I suppose, and he sounds like maybe like 21, like possibly.
Yes. Yeah.
With this really like strong accent, and he's like been in like the most horrific scenario you could like imagine. He was like literally about to have like his brain like harvested to be put in a machine, and his friends all died, and he meets Raiden, this ninja, like in the sewer, and he's like, oh wow, like a cool ninja, and he's just like they're just like, that sounds really cool. It's like Raiden's going off on a mission, he's like, oh, can't I come with you? And it's sort of like like you've like, it's like, what is this character like? Are they doing his accent for like just straight comedy? Like it's weird.
I feel like one of the things I did actually quite like was all of your crewmates and all of the villains were all from different countries. And it was always quite cool. Like you have the guy Doctor, and he would like slip into like German while he's speaking. And all the characters would do that. Well, like I don't think anyone actually speaking English would ever do that, like slip into their own language, but they would all do it, and like it added some flavour. And the story was pretty international, and like the locations were pretty international, so I did like all that. But yeah, George, don't know. I think there's one thing overall about this game, which is going to sound bad, but I feel like it feels really cheap. And George is one of the elements that didn't really feel fully fleshed out or thought out. It was just like, it feels like they're just cramming everything in, but the game was so like, the cutscenes look pretty cheap despite the explosions. The locations look pretty cheap.
I didn't get that impression at all. Like of it seeming cheap. In terms of like, you know, you could talk about quality of writing or whatever, but in terms of like the cutscenes and like the animations and like the audio, like I thought that was good. I do wonder, because I had a look through, because the footage for the video podcast was recorded by Ollie, who played essentially the 360 version, right? But on, I assume, on a modern Xbox. Yeah. So I played the PC version like on a Steam Deck, which ran like, you know, I could have it high settings and like 60 FPS locked. And I wonder whether like it's the 360 version maybe doesn't look as good, whereas the PC version is probably... I wonder if that could be a factor.
Well, I should think we'd probably have the same cutscenes because they're pretty pre-rendered. But there's like the scene where like Raiden's riding the motorbike and it's just like barren, and he's just like completely still on the bike.
But that's what a lot of like because that's in America, right? Like the desert. That's what a lot of them.
I know, but it just
like,
looks a bit naff. Like, and then the fact that the game is quite sloppy. Like the camera's not that good. It's quite buggy. Like, it's not that responsive. I was just a bit like, it just feels a little bit... I guess maybe because Metal Gear Solid is so high budget, when you put it next to that, it's like, you wouldn't be expecting the camera to get stuck in a wall in a Metal Gear Solid game in the way that it did in this game.
Yeah, I had a few dodgy things, and like sometimes like the ninja run, the animations, like it felt a bit like when you're somebody's running really fast and you're going like left and right. It feels a little bit like those mobile games where you like the endless runners like getting coins, the way he sort of moves like sideways. There's some of that stuff, but I didn't have too much trouble with the camera, and I thought the production value seemed like what I expected of a game of that size, of that era. Like, obviously, comparing to, like, if you compare directly to Metal Gear Solid 4, obviously that's like, you know, it's always like, you know, you play a third-person action game and it's like, oh, yeah, but it's not as good as Uncharted 4. It's like, yeah, I know, but, like, nothing is. Like,
no, of course.
I wasn't underwhelmed, and if anything, the action cutscenes, I was even more impressed. I didn't know how bonkers it was going to go. Like that first mission, like the fact that it's like you're immediately fighting like a Metal Gear Ray, which is like
this That's the ending of MGS2. Last time he plays them. Yeah.
And it's like this giant thing that can shoot nukes, and like he's throwing it around, and that's when he's running up the missiles and like slicing arms off it and stuff. Like there was a sort of one where I finished the mission. I actually went like, whew, had to like like breathe out after it. It was like so intense as I'm still just sort of learning how to control the game. And it obviously it can't keep that pace the whole game. You probably wouldn't want it to, because you'd pass out with the excitement. But it does have several moments of kind of equal hype throughout the game. And then, that last boss fight is obviously like, it's kind of all a little bit silly, but the fact that they're like, oh no, like the final quarter of the game is this boss fight with all of these different stages where it keeps kind of amping up. Like the bit where like he's just punching you like really, really fast, then it cuts to Raiden like squished into like the metal that he's on, like something like that. Like it's great. It kind of reminded me a little bit of some of the more recent God of War games when it's like two gods fighting and they're just punching. It's just like two people that are just so strong that just like their scale of like what is like an impactful fight is so different. It's like, to do any damage, you need to hit 50 times in the face to even make a dent.
There's that
really
part where you're like
that.
mashing punch against Armstrong and it's like punching him in the stomach. And then you do it again with another button, change the button. Never damages his shirt. His shirt is still like white and pristine.
Nanobots. Nanobots in his shirt.
That's it. Silly me.
That's actually probably a nice time to transition to memes. So the game talks about memes. And it said, like, the direct quote is, memes are the DNA of our souls. It's not talking about what we kind of think of as memes today in terms of, like, internet memes. Like, looking into it, it's like memes, what they're kind of talking about is the idea of, like, ideas spreading in the same way that genes spread, and that's what's going to have control. It's not going to be religion or politics. It's kind of people's ideas in the future, which is going to have the power. But the other type of memes, what we do think of as internet memes, is I didn't really realize this until kind of doing some more research, is this is apparently one of like the most memed video games. And looking through, I had a glance through kind of some of the questions that we got about this game, and a lot of them are saying like, oh, I only know about this game from the memes, or I heard about the memes and so I checked out the game. Like, had you seen, like, did you know that there was like a meme culture around this game before playing it now?
Only that I've seen a lot of screenshots with the subtitles have the word meme in. So people will post them with like someone being like, oh, this isn't, the way of memes or whatever. And it's like a character actually saying it. And I remember that from playing it before. But apart from that, no. But I did see someone comment, I don't have your names, I didn't pull the question, but someone did comment saying the game had like a revival because of memes. Which is crazy, right?
Well, I looked at, if you search YouTube like for like memes for like Metal Gear Rising, there's like several videos with like multiple millions of views of compilations of Metal Gear Rising memes. And like maybe like I have seen some, but like never associated it. I think the thing with us is because we're such big nerds, like we kind of know all these games anyway. So we probably just like, oh, that's a Metal Gear meme. Like that was probably recommended to me because I'm the audience. But maybe it's like it crossed over to like a more general audience, and so it kind of stands out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because I remember hearing about Metal Gear Solid, the way they refer to memes, their version of memes before memes were famous. Because like MGS2 is like all about memes and stuff. But the way they're saying it is like, as you said, it's like something that is passed on to you and you kind of make it your own, 10% of it your own, then you pass it on, which is, what an internet meme is. All that internet culture stuff in MGS2, man, it all kind of came around, didn't it? And they're all like controlling the narrative, and it is just what people tell you, what they want to tell you, and then that's how they sculpt what happens. Like, here we are now, Trump's president. That's what happened to Metal Gear Rising did that.
They at least predicted it. It was always like Simpsons is predicting it. Maybe we should look closer at Metal Gear.
Yeah. Okay. I don't really have anything else on this game. I've got the questions, obviously, but I feel like we kind of...
Yeah, there's... I got a line where someone said, you need to take a dump, spelled like DOOMP, and it was like some data thing or something you need to do.
Acronym,
and he's like, take a dump. He's like, it's always like the node nerds thing again.
Of course, that's what it is. Yeah, they were doing that. They were doing that.
Just look through my notes again. I think just the thing to get across is just how good a lot of that core combat feels. Like the thing where you have to slice in the right place and then you grab like their like gooey spine, especially if you do like several, if you get like 3 or 4 and you go through all of them and then you just like keep pressing like B to like grab them all. Like it's a really satisfying game to play, like that side of it. I did feel like there's a lot of enemies where it was like a metal enemy, and like when I'm doing my normal attacks, I'm always like, am I really doing any damage here? Like, am I doing this wrong? Like, should I just be wailing away at this like metal leg, or is there some other strategy I'm meant to be using? I did run into that quite a lot, but I think that is kind of what you just do.
Yeah, some of the armored guys as well, like you would do the same. You'd hit them, they'd block it, they'd counter, you'd block their counter, do your own counter, back and forth like 5 times in a row. And I'd be like, well, eventually he's going to drop his sword. But I don't think that's what you're meant to do. I don't really know.
One of us is going to blink if we keep doing
exactly.
it. Because the parry system is quite unique. And I think overall the tutorials aren't great for this game. And I think it doesn't explain it very well, because the parry button is just the same as the normal light attack button. And in the tutorial it says basically push towards the thing that's attacking you and press the button. And so I did that, and I was like, oh, I just attacking. But it's more of like you got to like flick the analog stick towards them, and then like kind of got to do it at the same time as you press X. But it sounds like, oh, if I just am walking towards them and press it, it will parry, which obviously it doesn't. You just attack. So it kind of took me kind of a little bit to kind of work out exactly how it works. But then once I did, it seemed fine, that system. I feel like it could have just been its own button. Like, there's no need for it to be on the attack button, because like you don't attack, you just stand there blocking, and it's like insanely generous as like a block where it's like a really wide window, but I guess the incentive is to kind of get perfect blocks, which kind of helps you out of the slow motion kind of blade mode. Yeah,
the screen like goes like gold, doesn't it, when you've like nailed it? But I remember back when I played it originally, I didn't know how to parry all the way up to the monsoon fight. You know, the guy that can like split into different shapes, and then there's a part where he like attacks you from all different directions. Because when I read the tutorial, I thought it was saying the direction the attack's coming from, like if it's overhead, you press up, and if it's
you feel
being
like
swung
up, down, left, right.
And I remember figuring it out during that monsoon fight. So this time round, I was like, oh, there was something about the parry that I didn't understand. So I watched a YouTube video, and I was like, oh, it's actually just really easy. Like, you literally just point, and then all the like I read a guide on who is it? I got a bit stuck on one of the bosses, and I was like, it must be a cheeky way of doing this. I think it was Jetstream Sam, because I went in with no health kits, so I was like, okay, I need to find a guide so I don't spend ages doing this. And it was like, I'll just mash the direction and X, and like his windows are so huge that it will catch. Yeah, weird old system that.
There's quite a that's quite an old school thing you don't find too much anymore. Is like being put into a position where you don't have any health kits, and there's nothing you can do. Like, that's just as you are. Like, I always think there's a playthrough of Half-Life 2 when I got into that situation, where it's like, if you don't have health and that's your save, it's like you just have to go back loads. And so it's sort of having to keep redoing the area. You know, it's like, oh, my save is right as they're going to shoot me. So I know I've got to dodge right at the beginning, but I got low health. And like, it's almost like a little combat puzzle. You got to keep trying until you get out of it. Like, because it makes a huge difference for how many of those health kits, because they are so strong. It is an instant, you know, there's different versions of it, instant put all your health up. Like, if you have 5 of those going into a boss fight compared to none, like, that is one of the biggest factors for difficulty, not whatever setting you have it on or how good you are, it's how prepared you are. It kind of made me not want to ever use health kits outside of a boss fight.
Well, they just use themselves as well. Like, if you lose health and you've got a health kit, it will just refill your health bar. So you can just carry on mashing attack.
I didn't realise that. I would always use them when I got down to like low health.
With little tip though, that Jetstream Sam fight, there is 2 health kits you can pick up. Like, that area, there's some rocks, and a couple of them have got crates by them. They don't look like crates you can interact with, but if you do hit them with your sword, a little health kit will like ping out. So that's basically how I got through that. Although that fight was actually pretty easy compared to...
Yeah, I didn't die on that one. I died on the final one a couple times, different stages. I think I might have done on the monsoon one when he's like I think one of the first times he was throwing, like he throws like stuff at you. I think I might have died there one time.
That fight, I remember. So basically, what I remember from when I played it back in the day was, I remember the ending because I've got a really embarrassing story about that. I'll tell you an extra credit. Everyone look forward to that. And I also remember the monsoon fight taking me ages and getting really stuck. And I got stuck in it again this time, where I was just like, if I just keep attacking, eventually it will hit him. Like, he keeps splitting up and then he will like...
Yeah, that was another thing I didn't really work out from, because he's like this guy who's basically, he breaks apart. He's like kind of like made out of magnets or something. And so when you hit him, he goes like whoop, and just like his like limbs move out of the way.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's really good. But yeah, I never suddenly worked out. And then there'd suddenly be a move that you can do the slow-mo and hit him, and then he falls apart. And then when he goes back together, he just stops doing that dodge thing. But I never really understood, like, oh, why is he not bothering to do it now? Like, I'm sure there is a reason for it, but I just never understood when I was going to be able to hurt him and when he was just going to dodge, like, literally everything.
Yeah, I would just knock his head off and then run into his head and do blade mode. Just like
when it's down but then when he goes back together, you can carry on
Yeah.
hitting him after that.
Right,
I'm
okay.
not sure why.
So yeah, that was one of them. Then there was Mistral. Woman?
Mistral, she was the one with all the arms.
See, that's a good design boss fight, that is, because it's like,
kind of looks a bit like
you're
Fortune.
a guy who cuts arms off. Cover the boss in arms. Good,
Yeah.
fun. And then there was Sundowner. That was pretty easy as well, to be honest. Once you got the hang of chopping through his shields, it was only really the last boss that I had any trouble with, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like we were kind of getting caught up at the same bosses by the sounds of it. And then most of the rest of the combat was pretty fine. There was like the first time you fight kind of one of the bad robot wolves, but I think that was the time when I've worked out how to parry. I think I looked up a YouTube video then. So I was like, wait, I don't understand what I'm doing here. I'm just dying. And then it literally says like, ignore what the tutorial says, this is how it works. And I was like, that's made it a whole lot easier. Then there are the VR missions as well. I know you said you played some of them. I did a few, but didn't find them that engaging because it's like just a lot of the spectacle stripped out of it. Kind of just they're more of like glorified tutorial challenge rooms.
Yeah, but you earn money. That's why I did them.
You earn
money, baby.
Okay.
Yeah, level up your Raiden. My Raiden was so strong that I had maxed out health, maxed out fuel. Strong boy. The fuel was quite good. At first, I was like, I don't understand why would ever want to max out fuel, because you need to have 100%. You need to have full to slow down time. But actually, anything over 100%, it will activate the slow-mo. So
and also when you do the slow-mo, you have longer, I guess, because it's more to drain. Yeah.
But I was like, well, I've got to build up to 150 to activate slow-mo. But then, no, that doesn't sound to be the case. So I bought loads of stuff as well. I wish you could buy health kits, though. That would be good. I don't have anything else. Would you like questions? Have you got everything off your chest that you wanted to, Joe the Ripper?
Yeah. I do.
Can I just say, that whole Jack the Ripper thing was so lame. Like, it's so uncool. It's so
you got to explain a little bit what it is.
He's like, Raiden, I don't really understand. He's like every so often he like goes evil and his eye goes red and he's like, I'm actually Jack the Ripper. And then he's like, everyone knows me. Do you know what? I don't know. I don't really know what it is.
So the Jack the Ripper thing, that was from Metal Gear Solid 2. They spoke about that.
Yeah, it's like when he was a child
history.
soldier, he was like really effective.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. Yeah.
But then there's a bit with like where, because he's been like, oh no, I'm going to control my emotions and blah, 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 blah. But then he's like, no, like I'm going to release my anger, and he turns off his damage inhibitors so he can feel the pain and stabs himself, or someone stabs him, but he loves it. And then he's like, he gets like into super angry mode.
I wonder if kids saw that now, they would think it was lame, or if they would think it was cool. Because I feel like that trope is a very early 2000s thing. You don't really see that so much anymore. Maybe we just don't see stuff that has that in it because we're older.
Yeah, I bet that's pretty universal for people of that age.
Anyway, questions. Curb Kip on Discord says, not a question, but a fun fact. Some of the boss's dialogue will change depending on how you fight them. For example, Monsoon will beg you to stop if you are very aggressive in his fight. Did you see that? Any of those?
I mean, I don't. Maybe I don't know what do I compare it to?
If you died and then came back, I had one for Armstrong. When I restarted the fight, he was like, "I'll give you another chance because I like you." And I was like, okay.
Maybe then, maybe yeah, maybe I had that. Like, because I thought you were talking about more like an alternate ending cutscene, but it's like,
no,
I wouldn't know if that was the baseline one or not.
Very true. Legend of Mog on our Discord said, did iReview have any issues with controls? Despite the game running fantastically on Steam Deck, I did feel like the controls were a bit inconsistent, especially around adjusting the camera position and parrying. For me, the most inconsistent thing I noticed is opening the sub-weapon menu, like, where it fills the whole screen. You had to be standing completely still, but Raiden would, like, when he's finished running, he'd kind of like run and then like adjust back to that, and I'd be like mashing the thing to open it. Yeah. But yeah, that's where I was like, just like it's just like didn't feel like it.
Is that, and then even when you have it and you're like aiming, just the turning speed is so slow. Like the enemies are so quick, and he's like, "I'm gonna throw a grenade now," and it's like showing like the arc. It's like, I don't need that. I just throw it there. Like it should be like if you're looking at them, it just throws at the enemy and like hits them. Like that's what it should be. It shouldn't be like you never need that like to do the arc and be that exact, because they're all jumping around anyway. It should be just like a thing you flick out, because it makes sense having that stuff, because it's like a reward for exploration, because there's like hidden like boxes around the place, and normally the thing you're getting out of them is the equipment, and so it's good to give like a reason to explore, or you unlock more VR missions. Sometimes there's like a little computer just like on the ground you go to like unlock a VR mission. So like I don't mind it being in the game as like a tactical thing, but yeah, that system, it was like the system that they have in Metal Gear Solid games, but it doesn't fit this game.
Yeah. Isaac on Discord also said, I'll second this. The game's great, but the controls are not the best. Parrying feels awkward at times. The Real Detenshi on YouTube says, no real stories from me, but the fact a mural of Raiden for this game located in Leeds in the UK was not taken down until 2020 is a really cool fact to me. Did you see that?
No, I'm going to look it up.
It's amazing. It's amazing. It's a really cool piece of art. It's like properly done in the Metal Gear Solid artist style as well, and it's huge.
Oh, wow. That's super cool. But it's gone now.
It's been covered by an advert for flannels. But the news story I read about it, to be fair, the news story was like covering the famous Metal Gear Solid artwork, which itself was also an advert. Which they're not wrong, you know what I mean? Like,
I know, but
it was an ad.
But it's art in its own right, that advert.
Yeah, I know. Like, it's amazing. It is amazing.
I hope that like the thing that's covered it, like at some point peels off and you just see Jack the Ripper's eye poking through.
Yeah, true nature of flannels. Okay. Josh Iyer on Blue Sky says, one of my favourite things about the game is the vocal versions of the boss tracks that play when the bosses are at low HP. Somehow adding this Sonic Crush 40 style sound, at least that's what I hear, helps escalate the fight dramatically. We didn't actually talk about the music at all.
Yeah, I just think that's surprising. We didn't speak for this one. It's surprising we didn't speak about the music.
Yeah. I thought, fine. Generally okay. Like, the only thing that always rubs me up the wrong way is like dubstep, which it did have a few like dubstep moments, but mostly it's like it fits the game.
I think that's the thing. Like, it fits the tone of this game. Like, it wouldn't in almost any other game. That music wouldn't fit, but in this game it does fit, and it is kind of cool when you be listening to a song and then suddenly like the vocals come in, like when you're getting towards the end of the boss fight and it's amping up. Like, I mean, for me,
if you sometimes when you go into Blade mode, it will like the song will amp, so it's all synced up. It's quite cool. Yeah,
like it's not my kind of music normally.
No, really
I did kind of like eye roll a few times when it doesn't. It's the same as the rest, where it's like it really wants to be cool so much, but then like I didn't really. I don't think like the music was that cool, but like it was trying to be like kind of quite like edgy and like and so like I don't know if it entirely had the intended effect on me, but I was played most of the game with like headphones, and it was quite like, yeah, come on, like
yeah. I tell you what's weird about it. It's like I feel like this game was made as a response to people playing MGS4 and being like, God, I wish I was playing as Raiden. But I think what made Raiden cool in that game is the fact that you're not playing as him. And like he would turn up, do something crazy, and then he would leave. And it was like the mystery of him. You know, whereas like kind of when you're exposed to him for 8 hours, it's a bit like, oh, this guy's like kind of lame.
Some
kind of
people
takes the
like
magic away.
build up like celebrities. It's like, yeah, they make cups of tea and they have poos and they sometimes stub their toes on tables as well.
Yeah.
You know, and if you see that, it's like it ruins a bit of like the mystique around them. You know, you normally only see their public image, and I wonder if it's a bit of the same with with Jack the Ripper.
Well, yeah, you got to think
Jack
like,
the Ripper filing his taxes. Like
at the end of MGS4, when Raiden is fighting soldiers holding his sword in his mouth with his coat like his arms side down, compared to him driving a car down the freeway. Like, when you compare those two things, it's mental.
I think it's also just seeing him in the normal world, because you never really, apart from the part, is it in London that they go to Metal Gear Solid 4? What's the city that you go to at night and you're like following someone?
Oh, it's somewhere in France. It's not
France.
Paris, but it's something like that, yeah.
Because that's the only other time I can really think in Metal Gear where you're kind of walking around a relatively still normal looking place.
And you're in disguise as well. You're wearing like civilian clothes, so it doesn't look as weird.
Yeah. Like you're following someone, but it's actually like those like those arm robots or something in like a coat or something.
I don't know. You're definitely following someone who's like whistling, and that's how you track him.
I think it's those robots in like you know, like the whole like kids are trying to get into like a adult movie, so they're on each other's shoulders. I think they're doing that. If I can remember, I might be wrong.
Did you see there was a few enemies in this game like that were like made up of those arm things? Yeah, they have like one as a head. Like it's quite funny, isn't it? Right. Anyway, shall we go to the list?
Yep, just put it on the list.
Did you know we have a Patreon? Maybe you're unsure what that is.
Patreon allows you to support us directly, and in return you get exclusive stuff. Access to our Discord server, behind-the-scenes content, and an exclusive podcast series.
Your support means we can up our production and continue making fun videos. You can join us at patreon.com/the bonus points. And it has a free trial too.
Woohoo! Okay, so this is going to be episode... So what do you think, Ollie? Tell me now.
I literally flipped the lid up as soon as you started talking. Okay.
I should have said something really like shocking, like I want it at like number 4, and then you look a spit take.
I've actually got a few things, list-related things first.
Okay. Oh, what's this? What's
it's
going on?
not bad. It's all good things. It's all good things. Nothing's moving.
Okay. Oh, okay.
It's just that loads of games on the list have recently had updates. Patches and things that make them better. So first of all, Killer 7 is now been like next gen updated to 4K. All the UI elements.
That's not the game I thought you were going to say when you talking about games getting an update. Right? Survival Kids now has DLC, which is
they've 4K'd it and they've removed any reference to the GameCube. And they've made all the UI elements and they've done the cutscenes. And the other thing is about the update is you can turn on the 4K elements individually. So if you don't want the 4K cutscenes, you can turn them off. Pretty cool. Whatever. Dead Rising. We complained about the special forces. They've been patched. They've been sorted out.
Have they been nerfed?
They've been nerfed. Also, they've added about 24 updates, like improvements. Zombies are now more varied in their clothes. And also they can wear hats and glasses that you can knock off. That's funny. Little things like that they've added. Death Stranding is now on Xbox as of a couple of days ago.
Yeah,
so,
that was out of the blue.
Yeah, so if you have an Xbox and you were curious about it, it's currently £17, which is a really good deal. So yeah, I got that. And then lastly, all the Alan Wake 2 DLC is out now. But I've not actually played the second one much. Have you played it at all?
No, not yet.
Okay, maybe we'll come back to that. But anyway, there's all things that have been updated on the list. All good things. Also, I think Silent Hill 2 is in a good place. Where it is.
Are you in a good place about where
I'm
Silent
in a better
Hill 2
place.
is?
I'm in a better place. I think that I was on the Silent Hill 2 hype when we listed it, and I actually think that 12 is quite a good place for it.
I mean, that's the bonus points tale in a nutshell, isn't it? Us getting really excited about... I think it's when... It's something that we didn't expect to like as much as we did, and it surprised us. I think those games do really well. Games that we weren't, like when we started playing The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, we had a pretty good idea, that like, oh yeah, it's going to be really solid. But like when we went into play, I think, like Alan Wake 2 or even Death Stranding, or even I think for you, maybe even Doom. Like, I don't think, or GTA 5, another one for you. I don't think we were expecting to like them as much as we did. I mean, Disco Elysium is probably the big one. Like, I knew people liked it, but I didn't know just how good it was going to be.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy where everything is now.
I mean,
so no changes.
I might regret this. I might be poking the hornet's nest here, but I am curious.
Oh, no.
No. I'm just curious because Baldur's Gate 3 at number 1. Mm-hmm. And I know obviously when we were playing it, you were very smitten on the game, as Haley and myself were as well. But I know not necessarily because of the game, but you haven't finished it. And in fact, you're probably about a third of the way through, maybe. But it kind of been locked in number 1 on the list. I'm just wondering whether like you still feel confident that you would have it at number 1 of your personal list, or would you not?
I mean, it's definitely the best game we've done on here. Yeah, I think I still would. I mean, the reason I haven't finished it is I've made my own coffin, and I started playing co-op with someone who was not very familiar with video games, and it made my time through the game very difficult because I was teaching someone how to play a video game at the same time as playing a game I didn't understand.
Yeah,
so
it got very difficult hard. Game to learn anyway.
Yeah. But honestly, mate, I see a Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough in our future. Nothing to do with the bonus points, but as in me, you, and Kai, I think we're going to do that. I'm fairly certain that's going to happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, when I finished the game, I was already thinking about like next playthrough, I'll do this. Exactly. I'm up for that. I think that could be really good fun.
Yeah, I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 is an evergreen game. Like, it's never going to get old. It's always going to be good. So happy for it to stay at top. Also, now it's got mod support on console. Oh, another update. So there we go.
Cool. Because I'm still definite one at number 1. I was just curious whether it was how much of me was keeping it up there.
No. It's great. Anyway. Let's talk about our little mate, Jack the Ripper. That grumpy boy. I've got no idea where to put this.
Shall I kind of suggest a sort of area?
Yes.
I'm looking at kind of between, I guess, 46 and maybe 55 kind of area.
Whoa, that's lower than I thought you were going to say.
But, I mean, that's Ridge Racer Type 4, Super Metroid, Warcraft 2, Zero Ranger. Like, don't look at the numbers because that makes it seem lower, but, like, look at the other games in those areas.
Yeah. Although, to be honest, I think maybe where I would put it... So, where was that again? 46, 47?
Between 46 to 55, I said, as, like, a very loose area, yeah.
Well, for now, it's underneath Ridge Racer. I would... Probably the highest I'd possibly want to put it is probably underneath Driver San Francisco.
Okay, you're not a million miles off. So Driver San Francisco is at 42.
Yeah, because the game's fine. The game is fine. And it's weird to say that because I love Metal Gear so much that they could release one that I'm like, well, like it's weird that like I don't, I finished it in 2013 and I've never played it again. And like,
yeah, I mean, it's a different team, isn't it? It's not.
I know, but it's just like, I don't know. I think the game's, it's average. I didn't completely love it. Didn't hate it. That's almost bad, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess it's you have less of an emotional connection. Like I probably have more of an emotional connection to like LA Noire, but like not for good reasons.
Yeah, true. So let's how about we just try and pump Metal Gear Rising up as high as we feel is fine?
Well, I mean, at the moment, it's kind of at 43, so it'd be more pumping it down, deflating it, I guess.
You'd have it below Splinter Cell Blacklist?
Yeah, I said where I'd...
Yeah, but actually really thinking about it, would you have it below Splinter Cell Blacklist?
Yeah, and below Phoenix Wright and below Halo Infinite. Like if we look at Halo Infinite as like Halo Infinite multiplayer, like the multiplayer.
I had
by
more
itself,
fun with Halo Infinite. Yeah, I did have more fun with Halo Infinite than this.
I think I think I might have enjoyed Metal Gear Rising more than the Halo campaign, just because, because like Halo, even though Halo Infinite was my favorite campaign, like I think the biggest thing is the disappointment. Like I have so many fond memories of playing through Halo campaigns. And I was hoping for even at least a mediocre version of that, but it just was like I was bored by the Halo. Like Metal Gear Rising wasn't boring. Like it's not my style of game, but Halo Infinite I found boring, which was so sad for me, with someone who used to love the Halo franchise so much.
Yeah, well, I'm in the similar boat with Metal Gear Rising in that I love the Metal Gear Solid games so much, and then I should be the core audience for this.
But Halo Infinite's kind of like the next mainline one.
True.
Like Metal Gear Rising was a spin-off made by another team. And obviously Halo Infinite's another team than the Bungie ones, but it felt like, no, that's just the next Halo game. Whereas Metal Gear was like, no, when this was released, they're still making Metal Gear games, but here's this little offshoot with this character people liked.
What about League?
I think I want League above it.
Do you? Okay, wow.
Yeah.
You're literally putting it back down to exactly where it was. There's no revelations here. There's no revelations.
I mean, you haven't pushed back yet. Like, of course, I'm going to put it to like the reason it was there was because that's where I thought.
The reason I put it above Splinter Cell Blacklist when I did is because, like, I think Splinter Cell Blacklist is more technically impressive, but it's so forgettable. Whereas Metal Gear Rising was more. It feels like it's obviously from the same era, but I feel like Metal Gear Rising was just more fun, and like I'm going to remember it for longer. I mean, I remember it from when I played it in 2013. So
that's true. It is more memorable, more of a cultural impact. Like the reason I wanted to do Blacklist is because it was like the kind of almost forgotten like final Splinter Cell that sort of marked not the end of the franchise. I'm sure it will come back, but at least the long hiatus of it. But I'd always heard people saying like, oh, it's actually really good, but like no one played it. But it wasn't as good as I expected from the people saying it. But yeah. I just do enjoy that sort of stealth action more than Metal Gear, as weird as that is to say.
Yeah.
Oh, it's quite fun. It's funny because I remember back in the day, it was always the fight between Splinter Cell and Metal Gear.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that's true.
but it was comparing like Metal Gear like 3 against Splinter Cell Chaos Theory. It wasn't Splinter Cell Blacklist against Metal Gear Rising. They're like the weirdest ones to compare.
Yeah, I don't know why I always fell on the side of Metal Gear. I think it's just a bit cooler, isn't it? Like it was a bit more. It's just I think I liked it because it was different. That's why I liked Metal Gear originally. Is I thought it was a very different game. Because even though Splinter Cell had the same of stealth approach, like it wasn't funny or like fun like Metal Gear is. Like Metal Gear's, it pokes fun at itself and at everything else, and it wears its inspirations on its sleeve. And Splinter Cell is just COD, but your gun's silenced. Really?
Yeah, it's just like quite a boring setting of just military spy man. Like it's a story that you could get anywhere from anyone. Like there's so many stories that are like that across all media,
and there's not really, he's written.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Whereas Metal Gear, obviously it's quite anime, but it's its own kind of flavor of anime.
Anyway, where are we going to put it around here? I think below Halo Infinite's good, but I would probably put it above League.
Okay, you haven't pushed back before. I'll let you have that.
Okay.
Sorry, Frank.
Thank you. So that means Metal Gear Rising is going to be at 46, which has pushed Zero Ranger out of the top 50. I think that game.
Wow.
We've done that game dirty. That game was cool. It was good.
You say that every episode.
What Zero Ranger?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it was like, I think, we've done 75 games here, and Zero Ranger is one that has stood out, it stands out that was like, because we were discovering it together as well. I think that was cool because neither of us had played it, and there was all these secrets and stuff, and we were like talking about it. That was all pretty cool.
I mean, do you want to move it up? Like, do you want to propose something?
Do you want to propose something? Do you want to get married? Okay. I think it could go up to like 35.
Okay, so it's currently at 51.
Yeah, I think it's like Good Boy Galaxy kind of reminds me of it. Homebrew, really, really high quality indie developer. I think it's better than Good Boy Galaxy.
What do I get? Cool. What do I get if I allow that?
You get to put Zero Ranger up as well because you also enjoyed it.
I did, but not.
And do you know what? The thing is now we've got time because it was like one of the first games we did. I think that there's a lot of time that's passed, and I'm still like, it was great. Like, what?
Like,
what do you think?
I enjoyed it. I think it's just that sort of. I don't want to repeat too much what I said on the podcast. Like, if you want to hear my thoughts in depth on it, go listen to that podcast. But that sort of arcade format, very limited. You're kind of just moving and shooting. Like, just doesn't really hold my attention. I need a bit more agency and control, and like I feel like I'm sure to some extent you can, but I like thinking, oh, in this game this is my play style. Where in like a game like that, I feel like, oh, my play style is like I dodge the bullets and I shoot them back. Obviously, like there is a bit more nuance to it, and so I think that's the thing that's always going to hold me back. Like I think out of all of them, it's kind of cool presentation and interesting story is probably one of the ones I'd find more interesting. But in terms of that gameplay, like I compare that to like Driver San Francisco or something. Like I just
Maybe Driver San Francisco needs to move up.
Yes. Okay, that could be the deal here. Maybe they can team up and be stronger than they are as individuals. They're a more powerful duo.
Zero Ranger San Francisco.
Can I put Driver San Francisco 2? I want it up by like Dead Rising, Alan Wake area. I think that's a good area for it. So that's like 32, 33.
Yes. I think so, yeah. I've actually been thinking about replaying Driver San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because do you know what? In my new house, I got my games in my living room, and like when I walk through the door, Driver San Francisco is always right there, and I'm like, God, that was a fun game. Like I should put that back in.
Yeah, everything about it was fun. Like the story, the gameplay, the premise. Like that was a game that was set up to be fun and funny and unique. And if you want to play a game like it, there's only one. You've only got one option.
Yeah. So what about Zero Ranger?
I mean, to suggest a place, like I probably wouldn't, like I wouldn't move it above Warcraft 2, which is what it's under. So it's going to be entirely you suggesting something and me thinking, is it reasonable?
Well, I think Good Boy Galaxy, Mr. Driller, that kind of area, that's kind of where it belongs with those games.
What about one under Forgotten City?
Yeah, I suppose Forgotten City was pretty interesting as a premise as well. It had that same thing. And also, do you know what? From a gameplay standpoint, Forgotten City wasn't actually like anything groundbreaking, was it? It was like a first-person game where you walk. But like in terms of the ideas and the themes around it, yeah, it was interesting. I guess Zero Ranger can kind of compare to that. Wow. There we go. Oh, hang on a minute. I've messed up here because I've not left space for Alan Wake Driver.
So okay. the way this has kind of ended up now for audio listeners is Driver San Francisco is now at 33, one above Alan Wake, one under the Dead Rising remake, and then oh wait, where's it gone? Oh, Zero Ranger. It's like tucked away. Zero Ranger is now at 41, one under the Forgotten City, and one above Sword and Sorcery EP.
That feels right. Although Warcraft 2 is now being knocked out of the top 50. Something has to be.
Yeah, see, that doesn't feel right.
Yeah, something has to be knocked out. We'll come back to that another time.
Yeah. I'm done with list moves. That's the this week's free trial of list moves has run out. So we're gonna wait till next one if we want to move anything else for free.
Speaking of the next one, would you like to know what's coming up?
Yep.
So November the 29th, we are covering Papers, Please, which is available on absolutely everything, it turns out. And then on 13th of December, we've got our annual Christmas quiz. It's going to be the fourth one, Joe. Can you believe that? The fourth quiz. It's because we started the podcast really close to Christmas the first time. So
yeah,
we have one more that we do years.
My birthday as well.
Oh, it's coming out on your birthday?
Yeah.
There you go. I totally knew that.
That'll be my present. We'll be watching me beat you.
Yeah, we'll see. And then on the 27th of December, we've got Game of the Year.
Cool.
Which awesome. I've got loads of games that like I've missed that I want to play. And I don't know how I'm going to fit them all in.
Yeah, I've got a pretty competitive top 10 list this year. Because like I was thinking of all like the games. Like I was looking through all the games that I've played this year, and there's a lot of like really great ones. Some new ones I've been speaking about on Extra Credit that I'm struggling to think what I'll go above. And then I always kind of forget like, oh yeah, then there's also all of the games we did on the podcast. I always think of them in another category. It's like, well, no, obviously they're all included. So I got to, include Silent Hill 2 remake or like the Dead Rising remake or like all of the other games that we played this year that came out this year. It's like, well, they all got to be in consideration as well. So it's going to be tough nailing them down to 10.
I missed so many big games. Like I didn't play Animal Well. I didn't play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I wanted to play that. I didn't play that. Like a Dragon, I didn't finish it. I put it down to play GTA 5 and that game took me like 6 months to finish. So I missed out on loads of stuff because of that. Slitterhead, mate. Slitterhead just came out. Oh, come on. Dragon Quest 3 is coming out in like 4 days as of today. So yeah, I don't know how I'm going to fit them all in.
So many games, so little time.
Exactly. Good problem to have though. And the other thing I'd like to say is that, in case you missed it last week, we are no longer on Twitter. We are in fact on Blue Sky. We are thebonuspoints.bluesky.bsky.social, I think. It's like the default one they give you. And you can tell it's our account because we only follow 3 people. One of them is me, one of them is 4J, and one of them is Reforge. That is our account. That's it.
Cool. Awesome. So thank you everyone so much for watching or listening to this podcast. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time to discuss Papers, Please. So please join us for that. That's as good as I can do. Cheers for watching everyone and we'll see you later. Bye.
Cheers everyone. Bye.